Hi, I'm Rebecca Balcarcel, and let's take a look at My Papa's Waltz, a poem by Theodore Roethke. My Papa's Waltz, and I'll just read it all the way through first. The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy, but I hung on like death. Such waltzing was not easy. We romped until the pans slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. The hand that held my wrist was battered on one knuckle. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. You beat time on my head with a palm caked hard by dirt, then waltzed me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt. Okay, so this poem has both some light threads and some darker threads. And throughout, you can see this mixing of emotions of some fear, but some love, hope, but trouble. So let's look at it more closely. First of all, My Papa's Waltz, the title. This is a waltz in a lot of ways. A waltz is a dance or a piece of music that has a 3-beat pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. Dun, dun, dun. And if you look at this poem and count, especially the second stanza is very regular, you can see that every line has 6 syllables. We romped until the pans slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. So 6 syllables divided into little units of 2. So we have 3 units. And these are called iambs. So you have an unstressed and stressed syllable. Da-da. My mother's countenance. Like that. So in that sense, we actually have sets of 3 that are the engine of this poem, the rhythm underlying all the lines of the poem. So it really is a waltz. However, some lines don't have their assigned 6 syllables. Some of them have 7. And let's see which ones those are. One of them is, could make a small boy dizzy. That doesn't fit the pattern. It almost does, but dizzy is sort of backwards and sort of alternative, or it's adding an extra syllable and it's in a bit of the backwards rhythm than what we would expect. Same with was battered on one knuckle. We have an extra. So the father is not keeping to the pattern quite. The mother is. So we have regular, dependable rhythms where we're talking about the mother, but then with the father we have this off-kilter situation. Well, and that fits the content of the poem, doesn't it? Because we can see that here's a boy waltzing with his father. The father is drunk. We can tell from the first line, the whiskey on your breath, all right, could make a small boy dizzy. It's strong enough. The boy can smell it and knows what it is. And, the father's drunk, but he wants to reach out to the boy and do something fun. And the word romp is a fun word. We romped until the pans. I mean, it was fun for a second, right? But then the pans are falling. So here we have that mixing of fun, but also some sense of danger or risk, because he says, I hung on like death. Such waltzing was not easy. So to hang on like death means to just hang on really tightly. But think about if your father's drunk and kind of tipsy, not quite balanced, but he's holding you and you're maybe happy that he's giving you attention, happy that he's home, but at the same time, he's not quite steady. It's a little bit, it's a loving moment, but it would have been a lot nicer if he had come home sober and done something real with his son, like take an interest in the son's life, for example. But no, the father came home drunk, so this is a more problematic situation and family dynamics here. But yet the boy is clinging, right? He's not just like running from the room. He wants to connect with his father, and this is his chance. And so he's clinging like death. For one thing, he doesn't want to fall, right? There's a safety question mark here. So he's holding on really tight. But isn't he also holding on emotionally to his father? Yes, please love me. Please spend time with me. Please give me attention. This is part of what he's clinging to. Then we romped until the pans slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. So here's the mother's reaction. So yes, the waltzing is not easy for the boy. He's trying to, be with his father and join in this romping with his father, even though it's a little dangerous. The mother is watching. We don't know what her reaction is before the pans fall off the shelves, but you can tell things are getting a little out of control. Like the father is unbalanced, unsteady, maybe bumping into the shelf, maybe reaching out to steady himself and pulling the shelf. But now the mother's, if this was a good moment, it's being ruined because he's not sober. So she's going to have to clean those pans, pick them up. And don't you suppose she's often picking up the pieces of this family or things left undone by a man who's not 100% there for whatever reason, right? Like, we don't know his life. It's probably hard. I mean, the father definitely works hard, and I think we see that later in the poem. But the mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. Let's pause over the word countenance. I think we can see from that word that we are hearing from an adult looking back on his childhood. A child in the moment just saying, hey, this is happening to me, would not say countenance, right? It's an adult word. So this helps us kind of know where we are in time. We're looking back. And it's like her face cannot unfrown itself, which is a weird way to phrase that. Normally you would just say the mother couldn't stop frowning. Well, for one thing, you want the rhyme to work. Shelf itself rhymes. You maybe already noticed, breath, death, dizzy, easy, pans, countenance, shelf itself. But also this kind of backwardness or, flipping of the expectation of how the wording should go fits this theme, doesn't it? Of the, a waltz should be like this, but it's not quite. Or a boy in the arms of his father should be like this, but no, it's not quite. There's an unease and there's a flipped script happening in this poem. And there's one example where the wording is sort of awkward or seems to reflect the mixed feelings around the waltzing. Of course, I'm reading into this. You realize that any poem you bring your own experience to, you bring your own way of seeing the wording. So, there's room for you to be thinking about the poem a bit differently than what I'm seeing right here. Okay, the hand that held my wrist was battered on one knuckle. So the father's hand is battered on one knuckle. I think that's because of his work, the labor he does. And the poet's father in real life did work gardening and hauling bags of dirt around, and very much a physical job in the dirt. So his hands got dirt-y, not just dirty, but actual with dirt. And that's referred to in a minute here. The hand that held the wrist was battered on one knuckle. So you get the sense that the father, too, goes through pain because his knuckle isn't just scratched, it's battered. Now, some people might say, well, wait, maybe he's been hitting something, or maybe this is when he hit the shelves where the pans fell down. But I'm thinking he's battered as a man who works physically difficult jobs and who is probably, coping with some of that by drinking. And not making excuse for him, but looking at this battered knuckle makes me have some compassion for the man. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. So this waltzing, this dancing in the kitchen is not entirely pleasant because the right ear of the boy is scraping the buckle of his father's belt. This is a little sad, right? Because we see the boy is getting pain in a situation where he's hoping for pleasure. And again, the wording is kind of like disembodied, where the ear scrapes the buckle. Normally, you think the buckle would scrape the ear, kind of like the frown that's almost alive unto itself. This ear is like scraping along the buckle. It puts the responsibility on the child to keep himself safe, which is sad to me because I think the parent should be keeping the child safe. But the ear is somehow at fault for scraping the buckle. You beat time on my head with a palm caked hard by dirt. And again, I see the job that he does with his hands dirty, giving us insight into the father's life. But then that word beat is a little disturbing. Literally, I think the poet is saying that the father, is beating time on the boy's head, meaning the waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But it's an uncomfortable word because we are a little worried about this man. We're not sure we trust him. The pans have fallen. The boy's ear is getting scraped. Does this father actually abuse the child, beat the child? I don't think we have enough evidence here because what we're seeing is actually a tender moment, even though it's kind of accidentally harmful or painful. But maybe that the word having that other meaning in our minds gives us a sense of fear that is supposed to be in the poem. From a tone perspective, it adds a sense of danger and risk. And we know that this boy is in a bit of danger because this adult is not trustworthy, is not keeping him safe, is drunk, and is not in a position to be careful. So, with the palm caked with dirt, then waltz me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt. And we're back into the regular 6-syllable, then waltz me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt. So we end with a proper waltz rhythm, but the boy is still clinging hard. And I think, again, we have the sense that he's clinging to the father emotionally and physically. And there's a bit of risk, too, that he would fall off, that if he doesn't hold on, he's going to lose his father, or he's going to fall on the floor because the father's not supporting him, again, emotionally nor physically. It's a very rich poem. I hope you enjoyed taking a close look at it with me. Poetry doesn't shy away from complicated emotions and topics. So sometimes poetry is where you can go when life is complicated. Yeah. So I hope you'll join me next time and we'll talk about another poem.